What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Now today we have the 82 Rabbit pickup in the shop with the 1.8 turbo swap, and we're going to be installing a part on it today in preparation for Mark 1 Madness. Now this part does not need to be installed, however it's something that I've had for a bit and I'm excited to finally get it on. It's going to make driving this thing a little bit more fun, and I'm hoping will make it perform just the slightest bit better. So the part that we are going to be installing today is right here, and it is this DieselGeek short throw shifter. So as you guys can see here, it's for the 5-speed, because obviously I have a 5-speed in my truck, but got all the pieces here. So we're going to go ahead and throw this in here, and we're going to be replacing the factory with the weight and all the other things. We're going to be throwing in this new shiny pieces, which not only will look good in the engine bay, but will also be a little bit more easier to shift, a little bit more fun to shift, and hopefully will be a pretty large difference. And one thing that I have had a little bit of complaints with since I put this thing together was the shift throw is a little bit longer than I would like, and I've had this short throw shifter for quite a while, and I'm excited to finally be putting it on here, and I'm hoping that it makes the difference that I'm looking for, because with the way that I have the seats positioned in the truck and the way that the shifter is, shifting up for, you know, first, third, and fifth gear seems a little bit higher than, you know, I'd like it to be. So I'm hoping that this will maybe fix that. But either way, I've driven these short shifters before and I do really like them. I like the way that they feel. They're quite light and quite notchy, and you guys are going to see that here in this video. This is also going to be an install video showing you guys how to install this part. So if you're doing this specifically in a Mark 1, because there are some modifications that we are going to have to do to the actual short shifter itself to make it fit in this truck. So definitely keep an eye out for that if you are putting this into a Mark 1 with a Mark 4 swap in it. Essentially, this has the O2J shifter in it, so that this will be the same for your standard Mark 4 with a 5-speed. However, this also applies if you have a swap with an O2J shifter. And in this particular instance, we have the S&P aftermarket motor mounts, and that is one area that we have to make some slight tweaks with the way that I have this all configured. And you guys are gonna see that here in a little bit. But either way, without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so before we actually get started with the install here, I wanted to give you guys a look at how the shifter is currently. So obviously right here, you got first gear there, and then just to demonstrate the throw, all the way down to second, up to third, fourth, and then there's fifth, and then is reverse. So as you can see, you know, relatively long throw. So, you know, the whole way from third gear down to fourth, quite long. And with this new shifter, that is definitely going to be shortened. Now, you'll also notice that this doesn't pop super hard back into gears and such. You will notice a difference when we put in this short throw shifter. And again, you guys are going to see that in a little bit, but just wanted to give you guys a look at how this currently is in this thing, so that you can see the difference when we install the new one. Obviously, you guys aren't going to feel the difference as you cannot shift it through the phone. However, it'll give you guys a good idea visually if you are thinking about installing this in your own vehicle. All right, so got the camera set up here so that you guys can get a good look at what we're working at. So obviously, we have to get all of this old components removed, and the first part of that is going to be taking impact with 13mm, and we're going to go ahead and remove the 13mm nut that is holding the weight to the actual shift tower itself. So go ahead, pull that off there, and then once we do that, we'll then be able to remove these connectors. Now I'm going to try to give you guys a good look at this, but if you can see the way that these work, you pull them inward, try to give you guys a look, and then you turn it, and then it'll lock in place, and that will allow you to remove it. So now when we lift this up, we'll be able to get it out. Now the other thing that we'll have to do is, if you guys can see down here, let me try to move this out of the way, but there's a little clip here. Let me go ahead and yank this off, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like. But basically, just this little clip right here, you're just going to lift up on this tab, and then you'll be able to remove it. And then you'll also be able to slide this forward, which will then allow you to remove the actual weight. So there's that. We'll be getting rid of that. And then right here, same exact procedure. Give you guys a little better look here again, but you're going to want to just pull this forward and then turn it. It'll lock it into place, and then you can slide this out of the tower, and then there's remove that piece. So that's going to be it for the removal of this. Also, you definitely want to make sure that you have it in neutral when you take it apart, just because that's the way that you're going to have it set when you go to adjust it. So you want to leave it there right off the bat. So here we have our new components. Now, obviously I already have this connected onto here with that same exact clip connector. So if you guys are going from the ball and socket style that I used to have, right, like this, you are going to need to get a new cable end for this part. So make sure that you have that if you're going to this shifter. I'm not exactly sure what this shifter costs or what is included in the package at this point. I was given this. Shout out to Justin Whitmer. I'll put his Instagram in here, but he actually did give me this shifter to install in this truck, so appreciate that and really excited to finally be getting it in here. But that being said, I don't even know what this thing costs or what's included in the kit, so I'm just showing you guys the way that I got it, and this is how but I believe it does not come with this. I could be wrong, but this was how I got it. Either way, we're gonna go ahead and install this. Now I dropped that piece there. All right, so I retrieved the piece off the floor. Now, first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and slide this on. Now, loosen all these 4mm on here so that you'll be able to slide it onto the actual shifter cable. Then you're just gonna slide that onto there, and then you're going to let it notch in the groove there. Then you're going to do that same exact thing. Here, I'll be able to give you guys a good look at it, the way that you do this, but pull it down, turn it, and then that's locked in just like that. Quite simple. Now, you're going to want to go ahead and slide this over there. Make sure that you have your little slider piece here. Go ahead and slide that onto the shifter, but you're going to want to make sure that you get it slid in onto the tower as well. And then you're just going to go ahead and slide all this here. So right like that. There we go. So now that's all loosely attached on there. At this point in time, we can also go ahead and take the little clip and clip that down onto here. Just like so. It's right there. That's how that goes. Now also we can go ahead and take our 13mm nut and thread that on there by hand, and then don't have to go wild, but just click it down with the impact just like that. That'll do. All right, so now we're going to move on to the adjustment part of this, which some people may get a little tripped up with, but it's actually not that difficult, so I'm going to go ahead and show you guys exactly how we do that. Now we're actually going to go ahead and go inside of the truck to do the adjustment. Now you may be wondering why we're doing that since the shifter is on the outside, but I'm going to go ahead and show you. So basically, we go in here. We're going to go ahead and pop this boot off here and unscrew shift knob, and then this will give us access to the shift box itself. Now this is one of those things that is going to differ depending on what vehicle you have. If this isn't a Mark IV, it's obviously not going to be the same procedure as removing the boot, but in this one, in a Mark I with the TT225 thread-on short shifter box, this is actually a factory part from an Audi TT, fun fact. But either way, we have now gained access to here, and as you'll notice, there are these two holes right there. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to push down and then move this over. That's going to sit right there. Now, we are going to need a special tool, and I'm going to show you guys that right here. So there is actually a legitimate special tool that is the proper tool. However, I actually do have that tool as we run a professional shop, and I have a lot of those tools like that. But in this case, I'm trying to show you guys how to do this at home, and you're most likely not going to have this tool. So what I ended up doing was, this is the tool that you can make yourself. Essentially the same as the crack tool, but it's basically just a nail, and you go ahead and bend it a little bit so that you can lock it into place. Now, again, go ahead and show you guys inside of the truck what I mean by this, but this tool works just the same as the actual proper tool. So, and you can make it at home, most likely for free, as long as you have some type of nail that is going to fit into there. But basically, you're going to go ahead and set that in there, then push down right like that. Push it down there, and then that's going to hold the shifter in the position that it needs to be in for it to be adjusted properly. So now this is now locked in. Now we can go back under the hood of the truck, and we will be able to do the procedure under there. So what you're going to want to do down here is there's a little tab right down there that would be right there. You're going to want to go ahead and take that and push down the shift tower, and then you're going to want to lock that into place. The one on this specific truck is acting up for some reason, so it doesn't seem to want to hold itself all the time, but it seems to be right there. It's holding, so you're going to want to lock that into place. Once you have that locked into place, you can then go ahead and take this, and you can just release it right like that. And then you're going to take your 4mm Allen, which I happen to have right here. Take the 4mm Allen, and then you're going to want to go ahead and snug up these here on the shifter. So 3, and then dropped it. All right, that right there was a really bad combination. Not only did I drop the Allen, but I managed to get a metal splinter in my pointer finger, which was quite painful. So got that taken care of. And now gonna go ahead and torque down on this last one here. So tighten that down. Seems as though this has been tightened before, but there we go. Just make sure all these are tightened down. And then at that point, you go ahead, take the tang down, and make sure that it's unlocked. Now, like I said, mine has been acting up, so this may not work as smoothly as it's supposed to. But let's go in the truck here and see where we're at. So basically, what you're gonna want to do, take the nail, pull it out, and we're gonna see where we're at. So let's give it a shot here. It's gonna be first gear, second, third, fourth. It's looking good. Got fifth. Let's see if we get reverse. Oh yeah, I believe that's reverse. It may not be. That may be first gear. Give me a minute. All right, so I made some slight adjustments. As I mentioned, my shift tower lock is not working exactly properly for whatever reason. So that didn't go as smoothly as it was supposed to, but just made some minor tweaks and I was able to get it shifting properly. So now, as you guys can see, we got reverse right there. You can hear that loud click. That's how you know it's reverse. And then go ahead, go for first, second, third, fourth, and then fifth. And then right there is neutral. So as you guys can see here already, now I know I don't have the shift knob on, so it'll look a little bit different, but you can already see, definitely have a much shorter throw. And notice how notchy I mentioned it was. So you really hear it popping in and out of gear. Like I said, kind of something that's hard for you guys to fully understand and fully see, as, you know, my hand is the one that's moving it, but I noticed the difference quite a lot, and I'm already quite happy with this, and I have yet to drive it. So either way, I'm gonna go ahead and put this boot back on right here. So 3, 2, 1, just like that, all back together. So now I can give you guys a good look here. So I'm gonna go ahead for first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then reverse. So as you guys can see here, definitely, you know, the distance between third gear and fourth gear incredibly shorter. Now I'll go ahead and insert a clip of that before right here, down to fourth, and then that will give you guys a good look of the real difference that this makes. Again, here's the shift, third, neutral, fourth, definitely much shorter, and you can just really notice how much notchier this is, and I really feel as though it's grabbing the gears way better. Definitely a huge fan of how this is feeling so far. Overall, definitely seems quite nice, and install went pretty smooth overall. Definitely having adjustment just as we should, so didn't have to mess with it too long. And, you know, truth be told, I know I did off camera adjust it, but it took me like 2 minutes. It was really not that big a deal. It wasn't like it was like a half an hour to get this thing right off camera. Seriously, you guys are seeing this as I'm doing it. Really not a big deal. Now, there is one thing that I want to give you guys a look at under the hood here. And I actually had to do this off camera, and I knew that this was going to be an issue. But as you guys can see here, this part of this is a little bit toasted off. And that's because I took a Sawzall and a grinder to it, and because normally this would stick out to about right here. Well, as you may notice, and this is important for you Mark 1 guys out here watching this video, and you're using the S&P mounts, or really whatever mount, the short shifter gets into the bracket for the Eurovan conversion for the clutch, as you guys can see right here, as I have, and it also gets into the bracket. So you're going to have to cut that off. Now, it's not going to affect the functionality of this whatsoever, but it is something that I did have to do and something I feel as I should definitely mention. Again, it came along about here. I will insert a picture right here of what it is supposed to look like and what it looks like obviously right now. So did have to make some adjustments to it, but once I made those adjustments, things are all good. But again, it was just kind of a little bit of tweaking, and I did know this was going to be an issue off camera, but wanted to bring that to light because, again, for those of you that have a Mark 1 and you're looking to put this in your Mark 1, it is not a direct bolt-on fit if you're using those mounts, because it does get into the mount and it does prevent it from shifting properly, and basically will prevent you from going into second gear pretty much was where I was noticing the issue. So that's definitely something that you're going to have to keep in mind if you're doing this. Obviously, if you're doing this in a Mark 4, not going to have to worry about that. That's what the product is designed for, but you're trying to put Mark 4 parts into a Mark 1, you're going to have to make some stuff work. That's just how it is. It's the name of the game. And with this whole truck, that's how everything's been, you know? You're putting stuff in it that doesn't belong, so you're going to have to make some modifications here and there, and that was just a minor modification. All worked out, and the shifter is working quite well. And I must say, looking at it under the hood, looks quite nice. Now, I know this intake doesn't look great, I know the valve cover doesn't look great, and I know the boost tubes don't look great. I have all of those things are going to be getting replaced here very soon. I have a lot of beauty parts, as you could call them, for under the hood here, and we're really going to be spicing this thing up and making it look a lot better. I put really a lot of time into this truck on the functionality side of things, and it's cool to finally be at that point where I'm now doing some more cosmetic things that are going to make this thing look better. But as far as the functionality part, that was what I focused on the most in the beginning, and definitely something that I'd recommend if you're doing this, you do as well, because that stuff's really important, and that's what's really going to tick you off when you want to go drive your car, and it may have a bunch of shiny parts on it, but if this stuff's not done right, this stuff's not working right, you're just going to get aggravated and realistically just going to be frustrated at the car that you spent a bunch of time, effort, and money on, all for it to just not want to work because you got shiny parts on it. So I always say functionality over form first. Obviously form is still a good thing, but functionality definitely top of the line, because if you can't drive it, what's the point? All right, so that's gonna be a wrap on this video. Hope you all enjoyed watching this, and I hope that it maybe helped one of you guys out if you are installing this in your own vehicle. Now, like I said, if this is installed in a Mark 4, it's going to be straightforward. There's going to be no cutting, no nothing. If you are doing this in a Mark 1 with the same configuration that I have, you are going to have to be doing some of the modifications that I did, because if you have that shifter and you have the Eurovan cable conversion along with the O2J mount, which you obviously would need if you're running an O2J transmission in a Mark 1, you're going to have to make those tweaks for it to shift properly. But either way, not really a huge deal overall to do. Didn't really take me incredibly long. Just was able to take the Sawzall and the angle grinder with a flap disc on it to clean it up and really tweak it to where it needed to be. Either way, not a huge deal. So definitely, if you have to do this, don't be intimidated. It's really not that tricky, and it doesn't affect the performance of the shifter. Thing still shifts perfectly fine, and I am quite happy with the overall throw of it. Obviously, it is dark outside, so I'm not going to be taking it out for a ride tonight. However, I can feel how the shifter is, and definitely very happy with it. Now, in the background here, you also may have noticed that the tailgate on the truck is primer, along with my old tailgate sitting in the bed and a fresh new roll pan. So I'm currently working on doing some things to the rear of the truck. Obviously, we've got a new tailgate that is much straighter than the last one, and this new tailgate actually opens without a combination of screwdrivers and prying things, and also you have to remove the license plate because that tailgate is so bowed. So definitely excited to be getting away from that. And the roll pan, as you guys know, I do not run a rear bumper on this truck, so the roll pan definitely will be a nice addition to the rear of the truck and will make the thing look quite a lot better, so I'm very excited for that. I am going to be making a video on the install of that, but however, I am still figuring out how exactly I'm going to go about installing the roll pan on the truck. It's going to require some custom mounting, and I'm figuring it out. Once I figure out what I'm doing, I'll go ahead and make a video and show you guys if you guys are ever installing this on your own truck, because it will give you a good idea of how to do it. And I wasn't really finding that much information out there, and the way that I do it might be different than other people, but want to get that information out there just in case it may help someone out and document the progress of the build on the truck. So I'm excited to get that, but either way, I felt as though the need to mention the fact that my primer back of the truck, no, it didn't get wrecked, nothing happened with it. I'm just kind of in progress with a lot of things, and if you have a project car such as this, you definitely understand what I'm talking about. It's easy to get bouncing around here and there, and especially when you spend a bunch of time and money collecting parts, and then you look at the amount of parts that you have collected for a certain vehicle, it's easy to bounce around from one thing to the next. So, you know, I'm trying to stay on one track as much as I can, but that's not all that easy. Definitely, if you have one of these, you understand what I'm talking about. But with that, that's gonna be a wrap on this video. I appreciate y'all for watching, and again, hope you all enjoyed and hope that I was able to help some of you out if you're installing this part on your own vehicle. But either way, appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure you like and comment and subscribe if you want. If not, totally cool with me. But appreciate all the support that I get, and definitely thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.